Eagles. So I'm back again. Again, I didn't think I was going to be back. However, there is a lot of talk about two subjects that I really wanted to touch on. One was how Sam Darnold is now the first quarterback of his class to go to the Super Bowl. He was in the class with Baker Mayfield and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, and now he's the first one to go. So should he be considered one of the greats? Now, it's not just that. It's also because last year he took a different franchise to the playoffs and had a stellar record. I think there were 14 wins last year also. So they're discussing, there's talks around that. And then there's talks where, no, you can't say that because there are people who've been to the Super Bowl that aren't great, and there are greats that have never been to the Super Bowl, which I have mentioned plenty of times. The number one name that gets brought up is Dan Marino, and they're like, oh, well, they can't hold a candlestick to Dan Marino. And, I mean, it just bears repeating that Dan Marino is who he is after a long tenure of being great. When you look at some of the quarterbacks that have really good resumes now, they've only been in the league a couple of years. And, of course, I'm going to be talking about my QB, Jalen Hurts, this was just his fifth year starting. Took his franchise, the Eagles, to the playoffs every single year, no matter whether the offense was bad or the defense was bad or whether it was spectacular. He got us there. And been to 2 Super Bowls and won 1. So the talk is, how can you say somebody like Jalen is better than Dan Marino or anybody like that? And you don't. You don't in the grand scheme of things. If you want to look at Dan Marino's entire resume and other running backs and defensive players and everybody who had long tenures, you can't compare them to somebody with a short tenure. You can't. Now, if you do it fairly and be like, okay, what did they do in their first 4 or 5 years? When you compare them just to that, just don't even count this year. If you do the first 4 years when Jalen had been to the Super Bowl twice and won once, okay? If you're comparing that chunk to Dan Marino's first 4-year chunk, yeah. You could say, okay, Jalen's better than Dan Marino in that chunk. But that won't register because people think of him highly, as they should, because of everything that he did for so many years. So I think these talks don't have the proper context, right? Same with Darnold. How are you then going to put Darnold in the greats over Burrow and, not Burrow, Allen and Lamar and say he's better than them because now he's the first one from their class going to the Super Bowl, but don't consider Jalen to be better when he's 2 or 3 years after those guys and been to 2. Right? The math just doesn't math. And I hate this. I absolutely hate this about how they create these talking points and have these conversations because they're so lopsided and they're so foolish. Sam Darnold has had a great team around him, which is the thing that they complain about Jalen Hurts. But they want to say, oh, he's now one of the greats. Or they question, is he one of the greats? Then, What was the other thing that they were talking about today about Sam Darnold? Oh, how it's like a redemption arc for him because in his previous time playing, he was seeing ghosts, right? We all know Sam Darnold seeing ghosts where he was throwing it to nobody. So they're saying this is a good redemption arc for him, and I agree. Listen, I can be happy for another player outside of my team. It doesn't mean that I want them to succeed over my team, but my team's out. So I can be happy for Darnold and hope for success for him and hope that he can pull one off. Hopefully he can win it. Or you got the rookie who's Drake's in his second year. Hopefully he can win it. Jalen in his second year, he made it to the Super Bowl against Mahomes. Now, are we going to say that the battle between if Drake wins or Drake loses, either one, are we going to say that battle is the same thing as Hurts battling Mahomes. When Mahomes is already top 3 in everybody's mind, all time, Brady, Montana, Mahomes. Are we gonna now say that Drake or Sam is better than that? Now we can't say Sam's better because this is the first time he's been as a starter. He went as a backup with Frisco. I can't remember, was it Jimmy G? Somebody, he was the backup for somebody, I can't remember, but he was the backup. As a starter, are we going to try to now say that either May or Darnold is better than Hurts, given the situation? Okay, they say that Drake's got there with the easiest schedule, and then he didn't have to play Bo Nix in the AFC. And what did they say about us? Oh, you had hurt Purdy, so that's how you made it. Okay, great. All the excuses in the world made for Hurts why he's not looked at well. But are we going to then elevate Drake? If he loses to Sam, Sam is a vet, and Drake is a rookie comparative to how Mahomes was, I think Mahomes was on his 4th or 5th year. What was Mahomes? Mahomes was 17 or 18. I can't remember. But nevertheless, he has more time than Hurts also. And Hurts was in his 2nd year. But Mahomes was like all-time already. They're talking about dynasty before they even had been the dynasty. And are we now going to say that, because that was their 2nd win when they beat Hurts, their 2nd Super Bowl win. Are we now going to compare that to that win? We can't. Not if you're of the mind that Mahomes is the greatest and Jalen was battling against the greatest. No Saquon, no big rusher. He was dueling them throw for throw in that Super Bowl and took it to the wire. Holding penalty, not there. We don't know how that game ends. They don't get to drain the clock and kick that field goal. So there's really no comparison in these situations. But they will ignore all of those talking points. Okay? That was just one thing that really upsets me, how I always talk about how the narratives switch and they change and they jump from one foot to the other. And no, you can't say Hurts or any of these guys are better than Allen, Burrow, and Mahomes and Lamar because look at how they throw the ball and look at how they do this and look at how they don't get their team to where they need to be. And then they'll blame the team. Well, the team did this and the team did that. But then in another breath, they'll say it's a team sport. In another breath, they'll say he needs more. He needs more help on offense. He needs more help on defense. He needs this, that, or the other. They're saying give this stuff that Hurts has, and then he can do it. Well, doesn't that just put him on the same playing field as Hurts? So they can do it and Hurts can do it. So how are they then better? It should be even. Or it should be in the same conversation. I heard for over a week the crying about Josh Allen and how it's so sad and how everybody was like, he's got no help. Meanwhile, everybody told us that the only reason why Hurts got there last year is because he had the number 1 rusher in the league. Josh had that. They told us that he had the best O-line in the league. Oh, Josh had that this year. They said he had a great defense. Oh, Josh had that this year. They said he had great coaches. Josh had that this year. Josh had all the elements that they said was the reason why Hurts made it. He had all the elements, except for the wide receivers. We will say that he didn't have the talent of the wide receiver, but he had everything else. But that wasn't what got him there. Remember, they weren't throwing. They said it was all on the rushers' back. And that's how they did it this year with the Bills. They were rushing. But no even comparison. Just oh, poor Josh. And oh, Jalen stinks. The narratives are never the same. They never talk about people. They're all prisoners of the moment. So they'll praise Hurts and the Eagles in the moment, but then start dissecting it and then trying to downplay them and then try to cut them short in areas that they once praised them. They'll say, oh, I need to take back everything bad I said about Hurts. Saquon wasn't a factor in the game and Hurts threw them to victory against the same defense that took out everybody else in the AFC, including Josh Allen, where they couldn't get 1 inch on the brotherly shove last year. They tried it 5 times and couldn't get an inch. But the Eagles used it to great success. And the Eagles, their defense couldn't stop the Eagles. But it's Josh. It's this and it's that and the other. No fair comparison. All right. That's just one thing I wanted to mention, how the talks are never the same, and I hate how they try to destroy Jalen. And again, I mentioned plenty of times, Jalen is not above criticism. He needs to do better with running when the pocket collapses, instead of trying to wait for plays to develop, which I see he does a lot of times. He does take off sometimes, but he likes to wait for plays to develop. He sometimes misses open men. I mean, hey, every quarterback has their flaws. Josh is not clutch. That's his flaw. Josh tries to do too much. That's his flaw. Where he takes his team down. You see how upset he was. I turned the ball over too much and I hurt the team. Okay, he has his flaws. Lamar has his flaws, where they go away from Derrick Henry and they say, okay, Lamar, it's on your back. You're a superstar. Win it for us. And they don't. Everybody has their flaws. Patrick hasn't looked the same in the last 2 years. But because of his built-up resumes of being in 5 Super Bowls and 9 AFC or however many AFC championship games and everything else, he gets to ride on that, and rightfully so. I've never tried to say Jalen was better than Mahomes. I say he's number 2 based on success. That these other guys just aren't producing. Whatever. So let's discuss for a moment the coaching situation, okay? So now the coaching is, nobody wants to go to Philly. Nobody wants to coach Hurts. He's uncoachable. He can't do it. He can't be taught. He can't be doing this. Meanwhile, he's been to 2 Super Bowls with 2 different offensive coordinators. And 2 different defensive coordinators, if you want to talk about it, because Vic wasn't there at the first one. They've had a rotating door there, where guys are getting head coaching jobs and guys are getting paid more or whatever, and they move on up the ladder. Like we just sent a guy to Dallas. But you know what they did? They blocked our interview for their OC and was like, no. Kellen Moore already went over there and won you a Super Bowl. We're not sending you another OC because the Dallas offense looked pretty good. Looked pretty good at times. But Dak, again, is not clutch. He's not. He's a regular season clutch, but not playoff clutch. But even this year, 7 wins, and he wasn't hurt. They said they had the number 1 offense in the league, and Dak was MVP, and blah, blah, blah. 7 wins. They're trying to fight over if Drake May or Stafford is going to be MVP, and they won 13 games. They won twice as many games as Dak. But for some reason, he's in the conversation. Go figure. But Dallas wants to block us from talking to a coach, but wants to get one of ours. And a good coach to help with the Vic Fangio scheme. They don't explore the fact that maybe an OC is nervous, right? Because a lot of head coaches and OCs sit in an organization for years and underperform. And when I say underperform, I mean they're not getting to the Super Bowl and they're not winning them. They're comfortable with that. There's no expectation of them to take off and be in the Super Bowl, so they're fine with that. This is just my thought, my theory. They don't want to come to a city where the fans, the owner, the GM, and the head coach say, hey, here's your Ferrari, like we always describe our offense. We expect you to be in the Super Bowl, or heads will roll. And they're like, I don't know if I want to do that. This is my thoughts on it. I don't know that Jalen is a problem. Maybe Sirianni's a problem. Or maybe I don't know how to coach a Jalen. Maybe I'm only used to coaching a certain type of QB who isn't a dual threat, who isn't versatile, who isn't like Jalen. Maybe I can't, I have doubts that I can coach that. I'm used to a certain type of quarterback. Maybe we won't gel. There's all kinds of thoughts that go into that. But it doesn't necessarily have to be on Hurts. I can't deny that it might be, because I'd be unfair. I'd be unreasonable. But I don't think that that's the thing. I think it's the other things. Being under Sirianni, and is he going to interfere? Will the fans be accepting of a slow start until I get my feet wet? I think any new OC gets to week 5, honestly, before you really have to do what you should be doing. Get your feet wet. Okay, this is what the team can do. This is us under pressure. Okay, I see what I got. Here's how I can make my adjustments, and let's take off. Are they prepared for that? Are they prepared to go into Howie and Jeffrey Lurie's office and be like, listen, I'm sorry. I don't know what to do with all these pieces. In my opinion, all of those factors are way more daunting than trying to take on a Hurts who's had a new OC over and over and over and over again. And you see that no matter who the OC is, he's going to get you to the playoffs. No matter whether your defense is bad or your offense is bad, he's going to get you there. He's busy calling greats of other sports. Hey, Michael Jordan, how do you handle success? How do you be great? Calling Eli and calling other quarterbacks and calling other coordinators and always being about his craft. Always trying to find the next edge to be better. Hey, I got a revolving door over here. I need some advice. How do I improve myself? He's never lackadaisical. He's never just sitting around on his laurels and being like, I'm great. Pumping his chest and being like, I'm one of the greatest after I won a Super Bowl. He does not have that attitude. I mentioned before that we need a Vic Fangio type of OC. Somebody who is ready to get his hands dirty and ready to be in the mud and ready to have harsh truths be told to the offense and coach them upright. That's what we need. And I believe Jalen will be very receptive to that, given the fact that he's always trying to seek advice and he's always trying to perfect his craft. He's like what do you think about Kobe, in my opinion? Kobe was the first one there and the last one to leave. Always practicing. Always trying to get better. That's how I look at Hurts. Always trying to put in the work. Never trying to skip. Never down on himself or his teammates. Always trying to say the right thing. Always trying to do the right thing. And maybe that kind of stoic behavior is a turnoff for people. You know how people's attitudes and personalities don't mesh well. And that's a thing. At your job. And at everybody's job. Just in life. So that may be a turnoff for somebody. But it's not the skill. Jalen has shown time and time again that it's not a skill issue. He's got stuff to clean up. And if he could get some continuity, I'm sure he could clean it up. And get better. But remember, when you talk about your other superstars, how Josh used to be a turnover machine, still has a little bit of that ghost on him. A little bit of skeletons in the closet. And guess what his coaching staff said? Hey, big fella, calm that down. And when he did, when he stopped throwing it as much, when he dialed it in, he became a much better player and a much better asset to his team. That's what we have with Hurts. It's like, hey, when he's asked to dial it back, he does. No problems. No problems. When he's asked to turn it up, no problems. If it wins for us, great. If it loses for us, I did my best with the task at hand. But as everybody has mentioned a million times, our schemes are so pedestrian and so samey that the defensive coordinator, when he comes in, doesn't have a tough job. AJ's going to be here. Smitty's going to be there. Just get there and try to put your hands up. and you can be successful. That's how they play it. If we can get an OC in here that can give Kellen Moore and I'm going to even say Patullo type things, but for the entire game, we'll be straight. We will be straight. There's not a person alive that can say that in the games that I mentioned over and over and over again that the Eagles didn't look good for a half. And that was it. That was the talking point on every media and every one of the fans' lips. We look good for a half. So if we can put if we can put that same performance together in the whole game, we'll be straight. So we can't say that Hurts can't do it because he did it. And then he was asked to say, hey, okay, we're up. Or, hey, we've done what we needed to do. Let's change the plan. And you can see how the plan gets changed. And it's not him. He's following directions. And everybody want to jump on him. Everybody want to get on him and clown him. Talk about nobody want to coach there. Hey, I don't see the Bills with a new head coach. Because the same expectation is there. Get Josh to the Super Bowl. And his coach got fired the day after they lost, just like Patullo got fired. So that was like one day. I think actually Patullo didn't get fired the next day. No, I'm sorry. Patullo didn't get fired until like that Thursday or that Friday after the loss. And Josh's coach got fired the day after the game. So they're like four days apart maybe. Somebody can correct my math. 4 days apart, and the Bills don't have a head coach. But I don't see headlines about that. I don't see headlines about, oh, nobody wants to coach Josh, and nobody can get Josh under control and coach the Bills. It could very well be that there's too many jobs open, too much good stuff to pick from. Maybe people don't want to be an OC. Maybe they want to go be a head coach somewhere, pays more prestige, whatever. So they're trying their hand at head coaching jobs before they try and come do OC for the Eagles. Now, hey, that's a head coaching job at the Bills. It's not full. So I don't want to hear this. This is what I'm talking about, some more bias. Where they're talking about Hurts and the Eagles like they're nothing, but the same thing's going on with the Bills. No head coach over there. Come on. It's just sad to see this type of stuff happen. And to see how it's very clear. Maybe not in the moment if you don't watch enough of the people talking, if you don't watch enough of the fans. And I really enjoy fan channels. So I'm flicking through and I'm not just absorbing my own Eagles talk. I'm watching Bills talk and all the top teams and Seahawks talk. And I definitely get a good laugh out of Cowboys talk, even though they're terrible. Ravens talk and all this other stuff around the league where I'll check in with the fans and with the narratives that the media are putting out there, and it's uneven. Uneven at best, if I could say. It's pitiful. And then you have keyboard warriors who will argue you tooth and nail about how Burrow and the rest are God tier and can never be dethroned no matter how much they lose. I could have swore losing always dropped your stock. That was my interpretation. Does it not winning hurt you? But then they say it's a team sport. Oh, it's a team sport when your QB is losing, but it's not a team sport. Oh, but it's a team sport and it hurts. Hurts. But it's a team sport and benefits your QB. Oh, if Burrow only had a defense, he'd be amazing. Oh, well, Jalen Hurts has a defense. So how come he's not amazing? Oh, if he only had an offense, if he had somebody to throw to, he'd be amazing. And when Hurts has somebody to throw to, he's not amazing. I just say it's disheartening. It's disheartening. That people can't carry the same talking points across the board and treat people fairly across the board. And I should expect that. What am I talking about? I'm old enough to know the world isn't fair and the world isn't going to do right. I'm old enough to know that, right? Why am I even upset about this? This is how it goes. But at least you can hear one person talk about it. At least you can hear one person mention. And I will say that I read tons and tons and tons of comments and saw lots of videos come out in the week after about how Josh was babied, and people like Lamar and Dak, those are the two they focused on, aren't treated fairly and aren't treated the same way, and they're talked down upon where Allen was talked up. A few mentioned Hurts, but they were mostly Eagles fans. But I did see that amongst lots and lots of comments and channels. So props on that. That they say that the treatment was unfair. And even some media heads got in on it. Like Pat McAfee and a couple of other people. Cam and a couple other people did say, hey, you guys are not being fair across the board. And I appreciated that. But the talk for Hurts has to come around full circle. I really hope we get a good OC. I see names and faces floating around that are people that, and because I don't really follow the league like that, I don't know who's a good prospect outside of a handful of folks. And it don't seem like any of them are the people mentioned seem like they're a good fit. I don't know. I can only hope. I can only hope and pray that whoever we pick up is good. And that they're so good that Sirianni can just do what he does and mind his business and stay out of it. And let him cook. Super Bowls, the Seahawks and the Patriots. Best of luck to either one. And hopefully our Eagles can be in Super Bowl 61. That's all we can hope for. I'm not claiming it, but I'm hopeful for it. And if any news, any worthwhile news or any more talking points like these come up where people like Shay, what do I want to say, Shay? I'm going to call him Uncle Shay. Shannon Sharp is talking trash about the Eagles and Hurts, and everybody else is talking trash about Hurts. I can't stand that. Hopefully some good and some positive will come of our next OC, and there'll be another, either a Vic Fangio type OC or another Kellen Moore, somebody who can get the offense flowing, no matter who we have on the team. I hope AJ stays and runs it back one more year, but regardless, me Eagles fan. And Eagles until the Lord calls me home. Let's go. Fly, Eagles, fly. Go Birds.